So let's get right to it. Buffalo Bills player Damar Hamlin, who's just 24, took a hit to the chest during a tackle in the first quarter. He ended up collapsing on the field. Now, players gathered around to block the cameras as doctors administered CPR for close to 10 minutes. While the whole thing was happening, players were visibly upset. The Buffalo Bills team gathered in a circle praying for him. The NFL ended up postponing the game entirely. Now, the Bills released a statement saying, quote, Hamlin suffered a cardiac arrest following a hit. His heartbeat was restored on the field and he was transferred to the UC Medical Center for further testing and treatment. He's currently sedated and listed in critical condition. That's the latest as of the time of this taping. So for more on this, we are luckily joined by our very own Dr. Kohli, who is a cardiologist. Thank goodness we can talk to you because all of us are speculating at this point.
Right. You know, and Doc, I think I speak for a lot of us when we were watching the game, we were all shaken up. Personally, it took me back to a weird place when I was in college. We played pickup basketball almost every day, and the last day before graduation, a friend of mine dropped dead on the court at 22 years old. His parents were in town to see him graduate from Brown, summa cum laude, and instead they ended up planning a funeral. So these things do happen to young, healthy people. Shout out to Casey Shearer. I just wanted to know, is this something that just happens and we just happen to be watching? What is this normal? Like, because the hit didn't seem the NFL, but fairly routine.
You know, I've seen so many cardiac arrests in my career as a cardiologist, and every single one horrifies me because it's such a reminder of the fragility of life. I mean, you're talking about a football player who's probably the pinnacle of health and in good shape, and literally before our eyes he collapsed. And you know, it's hard to know exactly what happened in this case. The biggest question that I want to ask is, did he have something structurally wrong with his heart, something congenital, or something wrong with the electricity in his heart that set him up for this? And that's what really the doctors are going to try to do over the next few days, is a number of tests on his heart to try to figure out why this happened. But if none of that is the reason, then this is very consistent with something called Commotio Cordis, which is something that's been described for a long time. We usually see it in men. We usually see it in men who play sports. It's a high velocity trauma to the chest. So something hits the chest very hard, and especially the left side of the chest, because that's where our heart is, and it hits the heart at just the right time, or just the wrong time, I should say, because the heartbeat is resetting itself, and right before it resets is when it has this critical period. And so a perfectly normal, healthy, structurally normal heart can have this happen. And in fact, this could happen to any of us. If we were sitting here, our heartbeat was resetting, and then we got startled at the wrong time because it just sends the electricity haywire. And if you watch that video very closely, he sort of stands up for 3 seconds, which is when his prior heartbeat was still sending blood to the brain. And then you can almost see the second that his heart stops because the brain stops getting blood and he collapses.
Jeez. Well, Dr. Kohli, doctors reportedly perform CPR for over 10 minutes or close to 10 minutes. Is that enough time for someone suffering cardiac arrest? What does it mean for his recovery? 10 minutes seems like a long time.
You know, it does seem like a long time, but in the setting of high quality CPR, which means that they're basically pumping for him, they're replacing his heart with those pumps. I mean, it's just incredible if you think about it. They're still perfusing his organs, meaning his brain is getting blood, his kidneys, his lungs, and so you're essentially keeping him alive to buy yourself time to administer the right medicines or do other treatments that can get that electricity restarted. So if you think about and you look at all the people that have in-hospital cardiac arrests, the average time actually before the heart starts up again is about 12 minutes. So this wasn't all that long in the setting of high quality CPR. Now 20 minutes is about when the studies tell us we start to see a bit of a change, because if you've been down for 20 minutes, number one, maybe the organs aren't getting as good blood as if your heart was restarted. And number two, if the heart is still not starting after 20 minutes, that can carry a more grave prognosis. So I'm not so worried in the setting of that high quality CPR that he was down for 12 minutes, but thank God that it happened on that field, right? Because had it happened at home or somewhere else,
anywhere else,
like your friend,
but that my friend, they said he was gone before he hit the ground. He had it was something going on in his heart that he was born with, but he was at Brown, so there were 4 physicians playing pickup basketball with him.
Wow.
You know, so he basically was in a hospital room when he went down, but it was too late for him. And I think, you know, I speak for all of us, whether we we have kids or, you know, just people we know, I think it's hard to deal with this because it just isn't supposed to happen. He's a good guy. He organized like a toy drive when he was in college. He just did one in the NFL. He hugged his mom before the game, and I think it's hard personally to process this because this isn't supposed to happen to the good guys, and it just doesn't make sense. It's not the story we have written in our head.
Yeah, and at that age too. I mean, that's the kind of the first good news, if there is any news, because I thought that was a long time to be on the field. So when they said there was a defibrillator used, right? We were talking about electricity. Is that something different than just normal CPR?
Mm-hmm. So a cardiac arrest means that the heart stops. It can stop for any reason. A cardiac arrhythmia means it's an electrical problem with the heart. And the way to treat the electrical problem is to essentially reset that electricity. Because remember I said it came at the wrong time, so it almost like blew a fuse in your heart's electrical system. So you're essentially flipping back that fuse box. So the defibrillator puts electricity on the heart to kind of get that rhythm restarted. So the fact that they used a defibrillator suggests that it probably was an arrhythmia. It wasn't something else like a tear in his aorta, blood vessel, or cardiac rupture, or some other things that trauma to the chest can cause people to collapse from.
Jeez, it just doesn't add up to me. I mean, someone like you that sees cardiac arrests all the time, but for me, to all your points, 24 years old, football player, I just wanted to gauge all of you really quickly. You brought up the toy drive. I want our viewers to know about this too, because you can go to his fundraiser that is an online toy drive. There it is right now. You guys look at it. It's raised over $4 million. So what is your thoughts, Jeff, about the reaction? Because someone like me, I don't even watch football, but I know about it. I want to donate to the toy drive and support. What does that say to you?
I mean, I have a lot to say, and we're almost out of time. But, you know, to me, I love sports. I know entertainment's great, but sports is, I played college football, you know? Like, I didn't go to the NFL, but, you know, we talked earlier about, like, last year a coach got fired for praying before the game or after the game, and it's like you saw all those guys praying out there. That's why you pray, because you never know when something like this is going to happen at any level, right? And we get into these things. I watched Ryan Clark this morning. I don't know if you guys watch ESPN out there, but he was so profound in the way he spoke about it, because he's an ex-player himself, and he's seen things like this happen. He's like, we need to get rid of this terminology of, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to die for this sport, or I'm going to go out there, I'm going to die for this cause because of this happened. You're not going to do that, because it puts into perspective yesterday how precious life is, and in a second it could be gone. And all those players out there felt it, and that's why they had to cancel that game. Because how are you going to go out and play a game? Right. It's a game over someone's life and family, and that's what's important. It's starting the new year. We need to keep that in perspective.
Amen, Jeff.
But they didn't play, and that says something.
That does.
Yes. Yeah.
We're evolving. We are.